Good afternoon, Americans. This is your favorite alien speaking on Thursday, May 23rd, around 12:30 p.m. here in Georgia. It's supposed to be in the low 90s today and in the high 90s all weekend, maybe flirting with 100, so they say anyway. Fun stuff, huh? Well, I wanted to do a video today on history and got to talk to people like the African Americans and Mr. Rear End Budding Get whatever his name is from South Bend, Indiana. There. Well, here it goes. History. It's a story. His story, remember? And it's never 100% complete. Okay. And there's a lot of interpretations depending on how you look at history. Give you an example. African Americans. They want to eliminate all vestiges of the Confederacy, statues, and all kinds of stuff. Why? Because they don't like it? It was their ancestors that it happened to, not you. But you have a right to tell your children what the times were. But you can't just use your frame of reference, or the Southerners, or the Northerners. There's a lot of people that lived in that time, and their frame of reference is different. Give you an example. Your Revolutionary War. To you, all you Americans, it was you wanted the British out. Well, not to all you Americans. There were some of you that left and became Canadians and other things. But if you look at the other side on the British side, they called it the War of Insurrection. And to them, they were fighting a war to keep you guys under their foot. Different type, same time period, same situations, different look at a thing. Same as World War II. You look at it from the Japanese point of view, it's a lot different than looking at it from the American. Look at it from a German point of view, a lot of different there. Italian, a lot of difference. Asians, like the Chinese, a lot of difference there. And this leads me to Mr. Rear End here, Buddingett, whatever his name is, from South Bend, Indiana. You want to eliminate anything Thomas Jefferson because he owned slaves. Now, come on. What a stupid thing is to do there. Why? The 18th century, everybody that was anybody owned slaves. They either called them servants or slaves. Thomas Jefferson happened to be in the South in Virginia. The North had their slaves. They had free slaves too, but they also had servants. So you see, Mr. Rear End, that's a stupid reason for trying to eliminate Thomas Jefferson. You have to look at history from all sides, and it's never going to be 100% complete. Even today, every minute that passes today becomes history. But when you look at it, say, in a week, a month, a year, 100 years, you look at it differently. Give you an example, Mr. Rear End. Say it's 2019. So let's go back to 1919. What was going on in 1919? Well, if you look at it through your textbooks, which doesn't give you but maybe 45% of the history, if that, they'll say that you had two things going on there. You had the women's suffrage movement and the temperance movement. What they don't tell you is the temperance movement was uh, done by women, and an offshoot became the women's suffrage. It started in the 1870s as a temperance movement to anti-drinking. You didn't like your men drinking. And there was a lot of drunks because of the Civil War back in the 1870s. Um, A lot of guys were messed up. Like 100 years later in Vietnam, a lot of guys were messed up. But the history doesn't tell you what these women were doing. You had women like Carrie Nation who went into a regular drinking establishment with an axe and started clobbering everything that she could find, barrels of whiskey, beer, whatever. She clobbered it. And then you had the police coming to arrest her. Or the women that were suffrage, say in Chicago, New York, and Boston, which were the big cities at the time. LA wasn't around, known as a big city at the time. But those three cities, especially Chicago and New York, and it's Boston, the police would go over there and beat this woman with their billy clubs. But you don't see that. Look at the newspapers. They didn't put it out there, but they sure uh, carried it and did pictures of it. But you didn't see them put it up there in the news because the government didn't want them to say, oh, here's women's getting beat up, right? So this is what I'm saying, Americans. History is something you have to look at. There's a lot of different ways. And you just can't throw it away or look the other way or say it didn't exist. You have to know the good with the bad. That's all I'm saying here as an alien. This is your favorite alien signing off.